A really big advantage here is that with Marvis and Marvis Minis is that we're monitoring the network, and Marvis Minis does a great job of monitoring core applications like Microsoft Teams, which is our main communication for the council now. So it can monitor that day and night, and then we know about issues before we come into them.
Hi, my name is Naomi Elliott from Juniper Networks, and I'm here today with Aberdeen City Council to talk about their digital transformation journey using Juniper. Iain, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Could I ask you to introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about your role and remit within the council?
Sure. So my name is Iain Pilbeam-Cornfield. I am the infrastructure architect for Aberdeen City Council. So we look after quite a sort of a wide range estate, which goes from educators and learners within our education side, and there's about 26,500 learners. We also have the educators and the corporate side, and so there's about 8,000 of those sort of staff and educators. We cover about 166 sites in total, so it's about 60-ish primary and secondary schools, and the rest are corporate sites.
And when you were assessing the market and looking at who you wanted to work with, when did you first encounter Juniper on your journey?
We encountered Juniper about June 2023. So we were actually in the process of looking at the Gartner Magic Quadrant to see the leaders and best executors of technology within networks. But then very fortunately for me as well, our now Juniper account manager, who I'd known previously, had reached out to me and said, I'm now working at Juniper, and would you like to just go ahead and have a chat about the Juniper technology? And we're already ready to go and do a proof of concept.
What pain points in particular were you looking to address when you were assessing the market?
We have sort of a very legacy sort of network estate. It's multi-vendor, multi-access, sort of different layers and configurations that we had to look after. So one of the main things for me was, identifying how we could manage that estate with less resourcing from our side. So a large piece of it was about AI and how we could do that with managing less of administrative tasks and more in terms of the amount of work that we could put in elsewhere and to other projects. And the other piece, of course, was that as we're going through a sort of a digital transformation for the council, since around 2018, we've had a much higher demand on the network side. So we have lots more devices trying to connect, but also different IoT devices, corporate, education, public. And our current Wi-Fi and switching setup just didn't attain that. So we had sort of a fairly hard limit of about 14 devices per access point. So when we were looking at that, we needed much higher density, but we also realized we need to improve the coverage here. So that was our other biggest challenge there.
At what point of your analysis did you start thinking, okay, Juniper is the right partner of choice here? And what was the tipping point?
I suppose when we were going through this piece, we were looking at multiple network vendors. So it was just very open, we were looking at everyone that was sort of in that sort of top tier of the Magic Quadrant from Gartner. And I suppose when we got to the proof of concept, I think that's when it really shined for us.
Yeah.
I think Juniper came out to us and one of the things he said was, give us your worst site. So we gave you a school that was, very difficult to work with because they had lots and lots of new technology in the school in terms of end user devices.
Yeah.
But they didn't have the back end and the connectivity to connect to it.
So if you had to summarize 3 main outcomes you were looking to achieve, what would that be?
So we're looking to increase our density, like I just said. So in terms of a sort of a national goal that we have is a 1-to-1 device ratio. So getting everyone, every student, every learner, every educator, every corporate staff member able to connect in and use our Wi-Fi and network all at the same time, and definitely a Wi-Fi first strategy and cloud first as well. So we're trying to have everything in the cloud. So Juniper Mist obviously fits nicely into that because it's all cloud based. It's very autonomous. It helps with the admin side. We've also been looking for obviously a system that can get through some of the admin sort of side of things and take a lot of that sort of piece of work away from the teams.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's a really big advantage here is that with Marvis and Marvis Minis is that we're monitoring the network, and Marvis Minis does a great job of monitoring core applications like Microsoft Teams, which is our main communication for the council now. So it can monitor that day and night.
Yeah.
And then we know about issues before we come into them.
Yeah.
And the other pieces about that are like, previously, if you ever have an in-depth problem that you need to figure out on the network, you need to be there and you need to capture packets. And, you have huge packet captures that don't necessarily mean anything because they're jumbled up with lots of info.
Yeah.
Whereas Marv sort of takes care of that, and it's got an automatic packet capturing. So that's another major benefit for us.
So if you looked at a material benefit there, from a stakeholder perspective, you're touching the operating team, you're touching the students and the teachers. Could you quantify what that benefit might look like when it comes to, let's say, troubleshoot tickets or the ease of connections for students?
So with the Juniper Mist product, we're using the NAC solution from you as well.
Yeah.
And the great advantage with that is that we're able to automatically sort of dynamically profile devices before they connect onto our network. So we have like a profile for a particular type of laptop or anything like that. So we know what network it needs to go on before it gets there. So that's wirelessly, but it's also wired. So that's quite a new thing for us because previously we had to manually go and put those in.
So over the last year, what have you been most pleased about from Juniper, and what innovations have you seen?
Yeah, so in the past year, we've really kind of made a lot of changes to how we do connecting our devices, and a huge part of that is the Juniper NAC solution. So it means that we can dynamically assign the port profiles and connect people in, but it also connects in with our cloud infrastructure from Microsoft, the Azure piece, where we have their new cloud PKI product. So as we go through a digital transformation, especially on the educators and learners, the learning side, we're able to go ahead and see more connectivity in with those third parties that allows us to simplify how we get connections done. So that's really important to us. And the other piece that we're really excited about doing next is actually integrating it fully with ServiceNow. So we've seen a lot of the innovative things that you can do and a huge amount of the automation, like with upgrading switch and Wi-Fi firmware, but through ServiceNow, which just takes it from the start of our CAB approval process. And because it's linked into the Juniper Mist system, we can say, okay, we're going to update these sites. This is the devices on the sites, and it just puts it through that CAB approval process and then goes off and does it at the end. So rather than having that sort of like engineer sitting there till 1 a.m. in the morning and doing it out of hours, we can go ahead and do that piece. And because of the automated rollback as well with the Juniper switches, we can confidently say that, okay, if the upgrade fails for any reason, power outage, anything like that, it will go ahead and it'll revert back after 40 minutes.
You previously told me that trouble tickets were a key focus of yours. Have you seen any improvement there? Could you walk me through that?
Yeah, so currently we're sitting with 100% less tickets within our ServiceNow system raised for the network side. Appreciate we're only sort of like 6 months into this full rollout, but we didn't really have any with the proof of concept either. Once we'd got it in and all configured up, it was all fine. So we've had the 100% less sort of trouble tickets being raised to our service desk for our networks.
Amazing. So you may have seen our headline of Juniper's AI native now. Could I ask what that means to you?
So AI for us, in terms of the networking space, is definitely about knowing about problems without having to go through like command line and figuring out problems yourself. So what Marvis gives us in particular is it gives us the solution in terms of it'll say, right, well, you've got a problem here. But I think what's really good about it is that in terms of the graphical user interface for Mist is that we can actually go back and backtrack and see how it's figured that out.
Yeah.
So if you don't trust, AI initially, then it's like, that's okay. It can give you what it thinks is right. And then you can go back and say, oh, actually, it came to that conclusion for all the right reasons and move on from there.
So if you were to go back in time and talk to yourself again at the start of your journey, what advice would you give to others that are in the same position as you were?
I think it's really important to actually go in proof of concept and look around the market and not just granular say, okay, we've used this brand for a particular number of years, we're really used to it. I think that one of the major benefits for us was that although we hadn't worked with Juniper directly ourselves before, is that there's lots of great training programs there and you can change certificates over from existing ones, with other brands, and they help guide you through that. So actually the training program's really quite good for that.
Yeah.
So I think it's less about being fearful of change and it's more about just looking at the technology, what it can provide for you. And the innovation level with Juniper, going into ServiceNow and being open API just really helped to do that. So you need to look at from a holistic perspective, the network is one piece of equipment infrastructure, but I think looking at more of how you connect in with your existing platforms to get that user experience down is what's really important.
Iain, thank you so much for your time and thank you for your partnership.
Yes, and thank you for yours and Juniper's partnership.